Let's welcome back Andy Hasoon. He's the chairman of Milamber Ventures. Very good morning to you, young Andy.
Thank you very much.
Right, long time no see.
It's been a while, but we're glad to be back.
Wonderful. Right, reading straight off your website, for anyone who's not aware of this company, you're listed on the NEX exchange. The symbol, the ticker is MLVP. Milamber Ventures is a specialist business accelerator and facilitator operating in the education, media and technology sectors. You've got a market cap of 0.7 million. Let's kick off. What does the business really do? In terms of education, obviously massively important. Is this, you're investing in startup companies, okay? How easy or difficult is that?
We're doing two things. The first is we get about 150 companies a quarter wanting our help.
Right.
In the education space, one of the biggest challenges that we have in the UK is distribution. How do you get into primary schools? How do you get into secondary schools? And the second biggest problem we have is how do you actually get people to spend money? We spend 90 billion a year in the UK on education. And one of our biggest challenges is actually helping these small companies access money because, of course, 2/3 of it's from government and 1/3 of it's from corporate. So we help them access that money and capital so that they can actually get more customers and grow. We do it two ways. We invest in the companies first of all, and we do that through the PLC. We get our hands dirty, we get under the bonnet.
And you've got about 25 of those people.
We've got 25 companies that we work with already. And we're getting a lot every month that sort of we triage, we look at which ones are the best, and then we take them on. And the second thing that we do is we're doing a buy and build. We've executed our first acquisition. We bought an apprenticeship levy company just before Christmas. And last week, we announced that we just bought Vocademia, which is a consultancy that helps organizations put in place more business development capabilities in the education space.
Okay, so it's so difficult, I guess, choosing the companies that aren't going to go bust, because 99% of employment in the UK is in small companies, and there's a huge percentage of small businesses that fail. How do you Warren Buffett, okay, what's good and what's not so good?
Well, one of the beautiful things in my past is that I spent a lot of time interviewing CEOs. My last business was creating video lessons just like this from CEOs about what were the success stories that made them able to build big, solid, sustainable businesses. And we've applied that methodology so that basically, if you look at UK companies, 70 to 80% fail in the first 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, they fail because 42% have the wrong product. They have a product that people don't actually need, or they've got a product that hasn't been designed with the customer in mind. Second problem, they have the wrong commercial and capital structure to be able to grow the business. And the third problem is that they have the wrong people doing the wrong jobs. So what we do is we literally look at each of those attributes and make sure that we fix them. And we take them through a journey. Where are they today? Where do they want to get to tomorrow? And how do we make the journey as smooth and as feasible and technically put in place the processes to make that growth journey feasible?
But do people appreciate you, let's call it meddling in their small company? Yeah, I'm the next founder of a Microsoft, and suddenly I've got some, the big brother sitting here going, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong.
We call it chaperoning.
Okay, beautiful. I'm not sure I could spell that.
Yeah, but we call it chaperoning because what you find is that a lot of the entrepreneurs that start businesses are very technically orientated or they're very creative. And what they need help is in the go-to-market. How do you acquire a customer? Let me give you an example. So we've just been turning around an apprenticeship company that was basically been around for 10 years. Now in May last year, a new levy was put in place in the UK, allowing £2.8 billion to go into apprenticeship training. Now that means that you as an organisation can spend 10% on the person's training budget,
right?
But then they can access 90% of the funding for the training course from the government.
Okay.
That's a huge amount of money. And also the bands that you're allowed to spend on training go from £1,000 up to £27,000. They're 15 bands. But the systems and processes to be able to access that money, corporates don't even understand it now that the new systems have come in place. So we're putting in place a team that can help those organizations first train their people, but also train their people better. Let me give you an example. Apprenticeships now, the guys that come out of schools don't have good enough maths and English to be able to do the apprenticeships. So, and also the trainers historically were never trained to teach maths and English.
Yep.
So we're now having to train all the trainers and all the assessors to be able to coach these kids on their maths and English so that they can actually learn the vocational skills that can improve their lives, create better job skills for them so they can earn more, and then they can actually deliver more back value to the companies that are paying for that training. And one of the things that we're finding is that we've just been doing a project with the ESFA, the Education Skills Funding Council, where we were taking 500 learners from an organisation that had failed its Ofsted checks.
Yep.
And putting them into the new processes and the new systems with our trainers and assessors. And we found that 20% of those kids, those young adults, didn't have the skills in place to be able to do the learning in the first place. Wow. That's a huge amount.
That's a big number.
So what Milamber's about, Milamber is about helping organizations transform, educate, innovate to the next stage in their development. And the thing that we've got to remember is that education actually is a very profitable business once you've got a sustainable business up and running. If we look at the EBITDA multipliers, typically they're getting 8 to 12 times EBITDA multipliers of stock market listed companies here and in the US, and 5 to 10 times revenue multipliers, again, when you look at those metrics. But to get there, you've got to create a sustainable business, and we help that transformational process.
Okay, to wrap up, the $1 million question, ask this to everybody, putting my hedge fund hat on. Why should I consider having your shares in the portfolio? What's the outlook for 2018? And I know that there's different ways of investing in Milamber.
Sure. So the first thing is that we were 300 grand last year. We've acquired 2 companies, and we're in the process of acquiring 2 more, actually in America this time. Now, what you're going to find is that we're going to go from 300 grand, big step change because we've acquired 2 businesses, and we already have 4 to 5 million pounds worth of revenues locked in for 2018, 2019. So firstly, you're going to see a big revenue growth, and of course that drives down to the bottom line to deliver profits. The second issue is we're trying to get people to invest in education companies because the biggest challenge is they don't know how to do it. If you're a high net worth individual or a sophisticated investor, let's call them a qualified investor, you can do it 3 ways. 1, we've set up the Milamber Invatech SEIS EIS Education Technology Fund, which you can go to an IFA or you can go to direct and invest through there. You get all your SEIS EIS tax breaks, and a very sensible team is then looking at the investments that are being made, and you get a good return from that investment process. The second way of doing it is, of course, to invest in the PLC. So you can either buy stocks through your stockbroker. We use Charles Stanley Direct, and you can't actually find them on the systems because a lot of next companies aren't on the electronic trading. You actually have to call up and make the telephone call. So that's number one. Secondly, people don't realize that their SIPs can invest in stocks like us. So again, they get tax breaks from their pensions as a result of that investment. Then the retail investors need to be able to access these type of companies. Of course, these companies that are on NEX are not necessarily promoted like the ones that are on AIM or on the main stock market. So we're trying to make sure that companies, individuals who can invest, are aware that we're available and that we're here to be invested in. And the last thing, of course, is you can always set up your own trading account. It's very simple, 10-minute process online, and then you're able to invest directly in us. Or you can call us up, and we can actually, we're doing a placing at the moment, to be able to place some shares to investors so that you can invest £100, £1,000, £10,000, and we've got strategic investors we're talking to about 7-figure investments, because we've got to invest more in education. It gives you 2 returns. One, the economic stuff that I've talked about, but also there's the social good.
It's the moral compass point.
Exactly. It's actually helping our youngsters and our adults get the skills that they need today to be more employable so that they can earn more money, so that they can have a better quality of life.
And on that note, the chairman of Milamber Ventures, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.